Hello everyone, welcome back to Analyst. After the Holi vacations, I hope that all of you have enjoyed Holi to the maximum levels and also having prepared for the exam in the meantime. Let us start with the Analyst with the very first article of the day, which is actually talking about the possibility of militarization of the Indian Ocean region, because recently the Iranian ship Dena was struck by a US submarine, which is accounting for the first US submarine kill since the World War II. And also in the news recently, all of you may have followed that the recent crisis between US, Israel, and Iran has escalated like anything in the past 4-5 days. This means that we have to actually look into the global events which happened, which we tried to summarize in the previous analyst discussions too. Here, the main topic that I will be taking up is whether we are seeing the crisis and the conflict unfolding before our own eyes in the Indian Ocean region. So we will be having a diplomatic, military, and also a strategic overview into the dilemmas that New Delhi is facing in the recent times in this present conflict. We will be touching upon the various topics from GS2, where we have the topics of international relations, which will be very crucial for this mains examination. We also will be looking into GS2 topics of internal security, mainly the aspects and the concepts of maritime security. So let us actually start with actually what happened. You know, the Iranian ship Dena participated in the Indian exercise where it actually came for an international fleet review at our own Milan 2026 exercise. It was returning from Vishakhapatnam via the Sri Lankan waters, and when it was around 40-50 miles away from Sri Lanka, it was struck by an US submarine, where if you see these visuals which were released by the various news outlet, these were the moments of the strike when a bunch of Iranian Navy officials who went to participate in our own military exercise, where they went to Vishakhapatnam, they took selfies, they had sightseeing, they also shopped. They shopped some local traditional Indian weaves. They were sunk, and they were sunk in our immediate waters. Now, it is to be noted that this attack did not take place in our exclusive economic zone. It took place near Sri Lanka's EEZ, but still it is having a very big repercussion on our own Indian affairs. So this is where we have to understand that the US came with a nuclear powered submarine and it struck the Iranian ship. Also, when we talk about the broader contours, we have to understand the Indian Ocean region does not entirely belong to India, obviously, but we have so many important areas in the region itself. For example, we have the various places of Strait of Hormuz, Bab el-Mandeb and Malacca Strait, where we can comfortably tell that more than 20 to 30% of the entire international trade happens between these regions, which connect the east and the west of the entire world. So this means that there are various strategic and military dilemmas that are facing India right now, because we have to understand that Dena in February 2026, it participated in Milan 2026 exercise, being India's own guest. While returning back, while it was torpedoed and sunk down by the US nuclear powered submarine in our own Indian waters, it means that firstly, we have maybe an erosion of regional hegemony. Now, this term hegemony is very important for the beginners to understand. Hegemony generally means, for example, if we have India here, we have Sri Lanka, we have Bangladesh, we have Nepal, we have Bhutan, we have these neighboring countries, which actually have a lot of reliance on India, be it military, be it economic, or be it any other aspects. India has a local leadership with reference to supporting these countries and in their own various affairs. For example, if you can talk about Sri Lanka and also the various other island nations, Mauritius, Maldives, India is sometimes known as a net security provider. That means definitely if Indian economy is within the top 5 economies of the entire world, both in nominal and real terms, that means we have a lot of economic power. and using that power we can actually keep the region safe. Region safe from whom? Region safe from China, from US, from this kind of external state actors, right? Those state or those nations which are not present in the region. So it is actually the responsibility of Indian Navy and the overall Indian forces to actually keep a strong presence in the Indian Ocean region, so that no other persons can come and stake these regions for themselves or carry on this kind of attacks. And if at all this attack has taken place right now, this extra regional presence by the US Fifth Fleet, this means that tomorrow China can also come, tomorrow any other country can also come and say that okay, these are the various enemies which are present in your own Indian Ocean region and I am coming to kill them. This means that this is totally going against India's own regional hegemony. The next dilemma in this conflict is that various experts are telling that India's underwater domain awareness was not entirely fulfilled. For example, whenever we understand that India is such a very large country with so many amount of military resources, we have a high amount of presence of naval vessels in the Indian Ocean region. So actually experts are telling that it is very, very unlikely that India did not knew about this attack before. So based on this, there are two scenarios. Firstly, various experts are telling that okay, let us assume that India did not know anything. India did not know that okay, a US submarine is going to come, a nuclear submarine is going to come and destroy this Iranian ship. Now this means that most possibly we did not have the technologies sophisticated enough to detect a US ship coming in or US submarine coming in. So tomorrow if China comes in or Pakistan comes in, maybe we will not be able to respond properly, right? And that is why various experts are also criticizing India. They are criticizing us that we cannot track foreign nuclear submarines. Now, I think that this is very unlikely. The next scenario is very serious. The next scenario is telling that India was aware of this US nuclear powered submarine entering our Indian waters. A foreign country is coming in our own Indian waters. While it is fine that okay, this is not within our exclusive economic zone. So the US Fifth Fleet came in and attacked the Iranian ship, and this did not actually happen in our waters, but still we have to understand we are such a large country, we have such large resources to detect such movements in the waters, and still we did not take any action. Maybe various experts are telling that US actually forced India to not take any action despite knowing this event which is going to happen. This means that our own strategic autonomy is totally declining. Also, we have seen the recent Donald Trump tariffs and the various issues with US we have had recently. This means that with the US, we do not have our own autonomy to make our own decisions. Even as of now, when I am speaking right now, the US has allowed India 1 month of time to import Russian crude oil because of the Middle East crisis right now. Right? That means India's strategic autonomy is maybe a tale of fiction. And in this entire event, we maybe have also alienated Iran, our very long friend, right? And if we are doing this, maybe Iran, maybe other global south countries and also the various Indian Ocean region nations, they will be very skeptical of India's regional hegemony right now. Also, when we move on, we understand that Indian Ocean region was popularly known as a zone of peace. No major conflict, no major events, only time to time maybe China became very naughty and came with their own ships to spy. That was it. That was the most aggressive behavior done by a country. But this present event has totally shaken the Indian Ocean region. Countries like Sri Lanka, Maldives and various other nations within the same, they are publicly criticizing this action and indirectly also calling India to action, that where we have faltered, that why we did not take any decisions. We have had so many major policies such as Sagar, such as Mahasagar. We have blue economy policy for the entire Indian Ocean region, which was the zone of peace. This is totally declining right now. Now, this can start a naval arms race in the entire region. Maybe China will be sending more ships because China will be becoming very cautious right now because USA has come and destroyed a ship of Iran. So China will be coming with more ships, right? That means that gradually this Indian Ocean region can become more militarized, can have more presence of such international non-state actors in the region. Indian Ocean region gradually can become a region where we generally used to control various events. For example, there were various events of Somali pirates, right? And that is where we also helped Iran in repelling some of the pirate actions against Iranian ships. So we helped Iran. We also helped with reference to the various events during the COVID pandemic. We supplied vaccines. We actually helped various other countries in the region with reference to their own humanitarian assistance during various disasters. Also with reference to various Chinese ships coming in. The Indian Navy sometimes also issued various advisories. So we have actually time to time tried to assert some of the regional hegemony we had. But right now, it can actually become a sea of denial. That means as of now, we have to become very strict with reference to what are the various strategic and military events which are taking place in this particular region. And at the end of the day, asymmetric escalation can also take place with reference to any kind of actions taken by Iran in the Indian Ocean region. Right? This can actually spiral to more serious events in the future. Now, when we come to the economic and energy security dilemmas in front of India, we have to understand that firstly, the conflict is taking place in the Middle East region, right? So, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, all of the countries are facing these kind of strikes by Iran, directly and indirectly, by Iran and its allies. Now, what will happen to the inward remittances by Indians? Because you have to understand that apart from US, which is the highest source of remittances, I mean the money that India sends from the international countries to India, right? These are known as the remittances. So, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Qatar, Oman, if you can actually have a separate column where you only put the Middle Eastern countries, the Middle Eastern countries combined together is the top source of remittances for India. So this conflict will see a decline in Indian remittances. This can have an impact on our GDP. This can go down. Especially this can affect some of the states which are dependent on the remittances. In the comment section you can let me know one or two states like that. Now we also have to understand that Iran has told that except Chinese ships, no ships will be allowed past their own Strait of Hormuz. This is again very concerning because we have to understand that through the Strait of Hormuz, India is dependent on the crude oil supplies, right? Because this region in itself very rich in oil resources. So 88% of the imported crude oil passes through this region. And since Iran has blocked the Strait of Hormuz, that means India's own crude oil can become expensive. And if the imported crude oil becomes expensive, this can actually raise the domestic inflation in the near term. So RBI can be becoming very cautious about it, and maybe in the near future we can see an increase in the repo rates and interest rates, right? Because this war zone is extending into the open region where these sea lanes of communication, or mostly the major lanes where these ship vessels carry the crude oil and the various other goods that are transported through this region. So this region and these routes are becoming totally impacted. So this means that the overall economic situation is not good. There can be imported inflation in the region. And whenever we understand that the prices of the crude oil increases, this means that this can actually lead to spending more of Indian rupees, right? And this means that there will be rupee depreciation, correct? And whenever we have rupee depreciation and whenever the cost of imports increase, the current account deficit of our country will be increasing, and that will further create more depreciation of Indian rupee. This is happening right now. And if at all such things are happening, all of these things will be totally declining the foreign direct investment in the region too. Because investors would not be interested to coming into India, especially in India's energy sector. So FDI in the energy sector can go down, so threatening our own energy security. Also, since a lot of ships are stuck in this entire Strait of Hormuz region, these ship companies and the very big corporations who belong to the shipping sector, they are required to pay a very large amount of insurance. And this large amount of insurance which are due to this war which is going on right now, these are increasing the cost of doing business. These are leading to the losses and also leading to the losses of Indian importers of crude oil. And especially here, the various public sector companies in India, such as the ONGC, they are facing huge losses right now. And they are facing losses with reference to public money too, right? So this is what we have to understand, that these economic issues and these dilemmas are extremely crucial for India's energy security. Now when we come to diplomatic dilemmas, India is right now in a very tough condition, because on one side we have the US, on one side we have the Iranian situation. Firstly, we have so many agreements with the US, such as the LEMOA agreements, the logistic agreements, and so many other military agreements, where these agreements actually kind of in principle permit some of the US ships to come into India for training purposes, for various retrofitting, for fueling, refueling, for this kind of things, right? So US can tell that, okay, you are part of the Quad, you are part of this kind of logistic agreements, and that is why you cannot alienate us, right? So India is in a actually very tough condition. On the other side, we are actually a very key friend to Iran. We have contributed a lot for the Chabahar port development. And we have to also understand that the Iranian ship was actually returned right after it enjoyed Indian hospitality, right? Even the Iranian minister here told that, the frigate Dena was a guest of Indian Navy, and it carried around 130 sailors who took selfies, who shopped in and around Visakhapatnam. Even the local residents of Visakhapatnam are actually very sad, because the sailors visited their markets and the towns, and this has actually caused a very sad event. Now, on the other hand, as of now, we have also some news coming from the Indian Navy that Indian Navy actually mounted some rescue operations after this Iranian ship was sunk, right? And that is why a training ship and various other vessels of our own Indian Navy, they actually went to the affected region and they tried to rescue a lot of sailors, along with the Sri Lankan Navy too, right? So this means that Indian Navy was not lying just like that. Indian Navy actually took various actions. We took actions to save the sailors, but it was too late, right? Because we have to understand that such events, with reference to these two geopolitical tightropes between balancing the Western and the Iranian interest, is a very costly one. Because, for example, for India's own regional aspirations, right, we have various international corridors. For example, the INSTC, right? This actually connects Mumbai to around St. Petersburg, and the main region, if you can see here, is bridged by Iran. Because since we cannot go via Pakistan, we have chosen Iran. And that is where we have Chabahar port, we have Bandar Abbas, we have so many other assets of Iran, which we thought we would use in the future to boost our trade and connectivity with the greater Central Asian region. Now this aspiration, this kind of diplomatic effort is threatened right now. Also, if we are actually seen by Iran as maintaining this very tight balance, majorly tilting for the US support, that means Iran can gradually go into the China and Russian axis. And you already know that China and Russia right now are actually becoming very close partners. Actually, they are partnering against the US. And this is where Iran can also go into that axis. And that can actually complicate the situation way beyond imagination for India. So that is exactly why India must sort these things out. We must reclaim our own Indian Ocean region. We must try to improve the various assets that we have in this region. And that is why India's own submarine fleet, whether we are using it for reconnaissance purposes or mainly spying purposes or for military deterrence purposes, we have to expedite our Project 75, which is actually directed towards totally modernizing our fleet and bringing in various new submarine assets. This can actually have a better presence of Indian armed forces in the region, right? Also, when we talk about the seabed based sound surveillance system, which maybe was not totally working in this situation, we have to spend funds to improve that, upgrade the technologies in the same. Also, we have to understand that India is actually part of the Columbus Security Conclave, where if you can see these countries are present mainly, we are talking about safeguarding the Indian Ocean region via having a security conclave, a security meeting between these countries. So, India must urgently call a meeting of the Columbus Security Conclave right now. We must try to discuss with our partners in the region what are the overall and what are the various extended versions of such military action by the US. Next, we have to diversify our strategic petroleum reserves, because we have to understand that such conflicts can totally threaten the crude oil supplies from the Middle East. That is why as of now in the country we have comfortably around 90 days of strategic petroleum, and if we can use it economically and if we can try to increase the strategic reserves which we have in the various parts of the country, we will be much more secure, right? Most possibly we should be having around 180 days of strategic petroleum, so that such events do not impact us to that level. Also, we must be dealing in non-dollar trade right now with various countries to actually lessen the dependence of dollars, and that is where US kind of indirectly also controls us. And with Iran, we should be having a rupee real trade, because we cannot stop giving assistance and trade purposes to the Iranian country. And at the end of the day, India must be coming with a document known as a red line policy. This red line policy should be having a detailed amount of the trade routes which happen in this region of the Indian Ocean region. This red line policy document should be shared with all the Indian Ocean region and the various partner countries, and we should be having a synergy of the various naval forces in the region, and here we should be boosting more amount of naval capabilities in the region. So this is where India can again become a credible leader in the region, so that such events do not take place again and US interests do not force us into such uncomfortable situations where we are actually intending to become Vishwa Guru of the global south, and also in the near future. So this is where we come to the end of this topic, which was actually a very lengthy one, but it was actually required because this theme of militarization of the Indian Ocean region can become very, very important for the upcoming mains exam, guys. So practice this question right now itself. We will be moving on to the next one.